Just can't give it up. Yeah.
Yes sir, what is going on YouTube? It is your boy Denali, aka Don Squally, and in today's video we are back at it with the first official mod for the RX350. Now if you guys saw a couple videos, the last video I posted on this thing was installing the front lip. Wouldn't exactly call that a mod, but today we're going to be getting some performance out of the 3.5 liter Lexus motor, which I'm pretty pumped about, because the one thing that I feel has been lacking with this car and the driving experience is it's just too quiet. And I know that's supposed to be a selling point of this thing, but man, I'm just so used to driving like Hondas, G35s, loud Altimas, things of that nature. So what I ended up grabbing was a Weapon R competition air intake. Now I ended up getting this thing used off of Kijiji, and this is basically what the intake looks like. Now this is a short ram intake, even though I'm going to label this video cold air intake, and I want to show you guys what I'm going to end up doing with this thing in the future. As you can see, I got my toque on. It's a little bit cold out here in Canada, so we're not going to worry about getting that legit cold air until summer rolls back around. And when it does, the plan is to modify either the stock air intake box. As you guys can see, we got the K&N hiding in there. Is either to modify the stock air intake box, which I don't really want to do. Now for those of you guys who know, the intake on the G35 is 100% custom made, but the reason that I ended up getting a legit intake for this thing is because the top of the air box where the MAF sensor sits, that I would have to cut apart in order to make a cone filter fit on here, that part used is like over 200 bucks, probably closer to like 250, 300 with shipping. So it just made more sense to get a legit intake. So in today's video, we're going to be installing this intake here. I'm going to be doing some voiceover showing you guys exactly how to install it. Then we're going to be taking this thing for a little bit of a rip and seeing how it sounds. So with that being said, I'm going to set up the camera on the tripod, hoping to get this thing installed relatively quickly, and then we'll take this thing out for a drive, see what's up. Alright, so before we install this, I did go ahead and modify this. So for those of you guys who are familiar with this Weapon R brand, they have this thing inside the pipe here, and it's supposed to give you like 2 airflows going into the engine. So it was sitting inside here, and as you can see, it was filthy and all that stuff. There was lots of debris inside the intake, so I was cleaning it, and I decided, you know what, I really don't need 2 different types of airflow. So we went ahead, cut that out, so now we just have a straight pipe into the intake. And I was looking at this filter, and it looks like this is like a styrofoam intake of some sort. I know like there's some like HKS and stuff like that uses foam intakes, but I think I'm probably gonna clean up one of my K&N intake. That's not the K&N. One of these boxes has got a K&N filter in it. That's also not a K&N filter. Nonetheless, I think I have a K&N filter. It must be up in the attic. I'm pretty sure I saw it the other day. And I'm going to be cleaning, oiling, and installing that. But for today's video, I guess since I can't find it, we're just going to be throwing in the Weapon R foam filter. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is start by removing these beauty covers. If you watch Scotty Kilmer, you know how much he hates these things, but I do think that they clean up the look of the car quite a bit. Next up, we're going to be removing our fresh air ducts here. Now once we got that out of the way, you can see me removing the lines from the vacuum actuator valve here. Then at this point, I'm starting to remove the bolts that hold in the air intake box. Once I start pulling and tugging on things, I realize that I'm gonna have to remove the battery in order to get the box out. Now, once we have the battery out, we're going to start removing a few more of the vacuum lines here, as well as the big crankcase vent hose that goes into the upper plenum. And then we're going to go ahead and pull off the rubber coupler that goes from the intake to the air box. Here you can see we're removing the mass airflow sensor from the stock air box and installing it on our Weapon R intake pipe. Then once we got that out of the way, we can start putting on our Weapon R coupler and then go ahead and install our intake pipe. Alrighty, so I just wanted to jump in here and go over the vacuum line setup here, since there's quite a few vacuum lines in this RX here. I actually ended up emailing Weapon R and they sent me back a little bit of a better diagram of exactly how to route the vacuum lines. So you have two vacuum lines coming up from behind the battery. There's a little vacuum actuator down there. And what you want to do is on this T-fitting, the original line comes in here, and then you plug in the second line into the T-fitting right here, and then that line goes into one of the vacuum ports on the actual intake. This second port right here just uses the OEM hose that goes into the upper intake plenum here. And then this line right here just comes up from the stock PCV and then goes into the big port, which is common on most cold air intakes. And then there's this vacuum solenoid. Now I watched a few videos on how to install K&Ns and they come with little plugs, but Weapon R wants you to just take a piece of vacuum line, loop it just like that. That's going to be fine because there's no pressure in here, so this is just going to read basically nothing. So that's the vacuum line setup right there. Again, I did have to email Weapon R to get a better diagram. What they sent, the pictures just weren't the greatest. It was hard to make out exactly what was going on. So I'm just gonna find a spot for this thing just to zip tie it off to the side here. Then I'm gonna go ahead, put in our fresh air ducts, and probably find a way to zip tie, or I think there's a clip here that clips onto the fresh air duct there. So I'm gonna go ahead, put everything back in. I just wanted to insert this clip just so I got the accurate information. And now that we got all our vacuum lines zip tied and routed the way that we want, we're gonna go ahead and install the fresh air duct here. Just help us get a little bit more cold air into the back of the engine bay where the intake filter sits. And then once that's done, we're gonna go ahead and throw on our beauty covers as well as our engine cover. And then make sure that we get all our clips reinstalled. Alrighty, there you have it. The intake is installed. So I'm just going to do my little wrap up right now. Overall, the install was relatively easy. I ran into a little bit of an issue with those vacuum lines. I'm not going to lie. The instructions just weren't that clear, and there's not really a lot of information on these vehicles online. When it comes to like the G35, the Civic, people are putting intakes on those things all the time, but there's just not a lot of people modifying these things. So took a little bit of research. I ended up looking at a few videos for like a Toyota Camry ES350 with the same motor, same intake setup. But once we got over that hurdle, everything ran relatively smooth. But it is getting late. I'm gonna go ahead, close the hood up here, and then we'll cut back in tomorrow when we are out on the road. We'll show you guys exactly what this intake sounds like. I'm pretty pumped. Woo! Okay, okay. So it's been about a week since I've had the intake installed on the RX, and I'm really happy with the way that it sounds. I'm happy with that extra little amount of performance that I got. Now a lot of guys online, I posted a few pictures and stuff like that, they're saying, oh, don't expect to get any power, but after looking at the stock intake from this thing and seeing all the restrictions and stuff in it, there's absolutely no way that this intake is not flowing better. Now I do really want to get the intake box on here, because I do feel like after sitting in traffic, like stop and go traffic, you do feel the car get a little bit sluggish, but in the top end all the way up to like 5,000-6,000 RPM, you're getting a really nice, really deep sound, and that's pretty much exactly what I was looking for this thing. But let me just roll the window up. When you're just cruising, you're not trying to get on it, it's super quiet. You can't even tell that we're driving a 280 horsepower 3.5 liter V6. So overall, I am really happy with this purchase. I don't even think that I told you guys what I paid for this thing. I paid $100 on I think it was Facebook Marketplace used. Still, I'm gonna throw the K&N intake on here, just because I don't really trust the foam intake that came with the webinar setup. But that's pretty much it. So for those of you guys who are new to the channel and want to see some more RX350 content, I know it's not really for everybody, but I have been looking online and there's really not a lot of people that own these cars, that are car enthusiasts, that are modifying them. Most people buy these cars because, well, they want a reliable daily, and I myself am no exception. That's definitely one of the reasons that I ended up picking this thing up. So yeah, definitely smash that subscribe button, stick around if you guys want to see more. And for my loyal OG G35 fans, my Civic boys, Tundra guys that have subscribed to me, this isn't the end. For me, I'm slowly building the most reliable car collection that you could possibly own, and this to me is a perfect addition to the fleet. But I'm gonna go ahead, fight this traffic on the way home here. It is a Friday, so there is lots of traffic out there right now. But as always, I'm your boy Denali, aka Don Squally. And with that being said, we are gonna catch y'all mofos at the next one, man. Peace.